Hello and welcome to this masterclass. I'm Professor Trentim at IBS Americas, and in this class you are going to learn about project management tools. I've been working with project management for the last 15 years, and during this time I was able to understand agile methodologies, traditional project management, and how to use software tools to improve our effectiveness in project management. So let's take a look at this class and come with me. So the modern PMO, or a modern project management office, is an organizational, a structural organization in which you can control portfolios, projects, define methodologies, and also implement software tools to manage projects in your organization. And PMOs, or project management offices, are evolving, and we have new organizational structures based on agile methodologies, multiple teams, and more. I'm going to provide some examples on how you can pave the road to agility, organizational agility, and get better results in your projects. So strategy execution means we have a business model. You define what are the objectives in your organization. Maybe you have short-term, long-term objectives, and you have to translate strategy into execution through project management. So project management is a set of best practices that you can use to get the strategic objectives and turn this into results. How can we do that? So every organization, you define mission, vision, and then your objectives. Sometimes you can use business model generation or balance scorecard, other methodologies to define the strategy. And some of these will be objectives and KPIs for operations, and some of these will be new initiatives that you have to develop in your organization. We call this projects. So a project is a temporary endeavor to create a new service, product, or end result. And through portfolio management, we can do that. Theoretically, it is easy to cascade the objectives, but in practice, it is very difficult to maintain alignment and also to ensure that you are executing your projects and completing the projects on time, completing the projects on budget, and also delivering the benefits we promised in the beginning of the project. So project direction and project management, and this is the project life cycle, you have to define what you are going to do and what is the end result, then create the scope, what would be the deliverables, requirements. Doesn't matter if you're using a traditional approach with a Gantt chart, or if you're using agile approach with Kanban boards or Scrum methodology, for example. You are going to execute the project, but you have to keep in mind that by the end of this project, the end result goes into production. So if you're implementing a new software tool, if you're developing a new product, whatever you're doing in your project, when you complete the project, you have to transition this to operation. That's why we need to integrate the project areas in our organization to the other areas, to operations, production, human resources, marketing, finance, and so on. In order to have this integration, we need not only best practices, but also use the same tools throughout the life cycle your project. So this is an example of a more detailed project management methodology. We start in planning, understanding what would be the customer needs. It could be an internal customer or external customer. Then you have pre-planning and authorization. And once we have all the plans, WBS, the work breakdown structure, schedule, and subsidiary plans, then we have the organization, acquire the project team, acquire resource, procurement, and then we go into the execution, directing the execution. It is very important that we manage the stakeholders, that we also manage other areas in our organization and in the project. And then in monitoring and controlling, these two areas is where we use more tools. The problem lies on interfaces. So until now, we understood that project management is a temporary endeavor. By the end of the project, we have the end result and it goes into production. And the problem is when we complete the project, we are not successful in transitioning the project into operations. So the problem lies in the interfaces, relationships, dependencies with other areas. In the project processes, we are very familiar with the PMBOK guide, Prince2 methodology, agile approach. But then in the interfaces, we need organizational enabling process, portfolio management, infrastructure, acquisition, supply, technical processes, and more. So once you complete the project and you transition the project, we need documentation, training, we need support, we need a lot of different activities to be in place so that we are successful in delivering the end result. Project management documents, for example, as I mentioned, this is very important. During the project, we have a repository, maybe a SharePoint library or something like this. And then once you complete the project, we have to turn this documentation into operations. And then you have to copy and paste, versioning, and other problems. So if you use the same project management tools instead of Excel, instead of Word, Microsoft Word only, then you can track this information from the start of the project until the end, and then after the project, once you transition it into operations. So now let's talk about organizational agility. Organizational agility means we are capable of executing the project, transitioning the project, and then delivering the benefits once we use the project results. Organizational agility means we have not only a hierarchy in our organization, but also that we are able to create smaller teams and to assign specific tasks to these teams. We are already familiar with some methodologies like the Spotify method and others, but these methodologies should be enabled by technology, by software tools, so that you do not have to copy and paste, lose information, and waste a lot of time in trying to track your project information. So organizational agility combines speed and control, and we are moving from traditional organizations, very centralized organizations and hierarchical, into more distributed systems. We have autonomous teams, peer-to-peer, decentralization, business unities. But although we have this distribution and decentralization, we still need governance, we still need support, and we still need the same tools so that we can have a single source of truth for financial information, schedule information, and other critical information to our projects. The enterprise model, the team model, and the individual model, you can use the business model generation, for example, and then you are going to combine different pieces in your business model to specific teams that are assigned to those processes or activities, and then the individuals with their competencies and capabilities to deliver that. If we think about how we can choose the best practices, we know that we have different approaches, and we can use the Kinefin framework. This is a summary of the Kinefin framework. We have disorder in the middle. Sometimes you go through a crisis or something like this, and you have to figure out what to do in the middle of the crisis. But usually we are in the order place. Some very simple projects, so obvious. We have the cause and effect relations, it's repeatable. We have best practices or procedures, standard procedures here. We have complicated, larger projects in which we have to identify what would be each of the pieces. Cause and effect are separated over time, but we can use best practices like Prince2, PMBOK guide. And here in the unordered, we have innovation. So in complex projects or in very innovative projects, we do not have order. So cause and effect are only coherent in retrospect and do not repeat. That's why we need different project management approaches. In the chaotic, we have no cause and effect relationships. Sometimes you are working with cutting edge technology or developing a very new product, service or something like this, and we have to adapt on the fly what will be the methodology we will use. Depending on the methodology and on the organizational structure, we are going to identify what are the software tools we need in order to be successful. So traditional organization, hierarchical, silos, you have specific departments. Usually the projects are confined inside these departments, and we do not have a lot of collaboration. In this type of organization, we do not have agility, we lose efficiency, and maybe we lose competitiveness. On the other hand, in this type of organization, the communications, collaborations, and tools are simple because we are confined into a silo or you are confined in a specific business unit. When we move to agile organizations, we have smaller teams, but we have a very large number of teams, and we have to define what are the backlogs, how we track these backlogs, how we track the use of different methodologies, hybrid methodologies, and more. So in these organizations, we need new software tools. I'm going to explain some of these tools using low-code platforms like Monday.com, Mendix, like the Microsoft Power Platform. You can combine different areas in your organization, provide flexibility in each of these areas, and also keep governance in place. So to define that, this is a summary of the book, Team Topologies. This is a very interesting book, innovative ways in defining what your teams are going to do and what are the tools you need for these teams. It is a book based on agile organizations and very innovative organizations. And the idea here is that we have a team structure that is organized into smaller teams that provide a platform in case you need. You need a backbone in technology for your organization. For example, you have back-end technologies or anything that will provide infrastructure. It could be infrastructure as a service to the organization as a whole. Then you have the streamlined teams. This might be multiple teams, the ones who deliver value to the end customer, so different streamlined teams. But maybe you need support teams. These are the complicated subsystem teams or enabling teams. And once you identify what are the organizational needs you have and what is the best organizational architecture, the structure, your organization will be much more effective. Let me give you an example so that you can understand better. Imagine that we have a consulting company. For example, we provide project management services to the construction. We may have a platform team that is responsible for our project management software. We help construction projects and we provide software tools to them. We provide schedule and so on. This is a platform team because it helps our organization as a whole, our consulting company. But in our consulting company, we provide construction services to residential projects, shopping centers, to enterprises and companies. We help in building factories. So this would be different lines of products or services. This would be different streamlined teams. So residential projects, commercial projects, maybe manufacturing projects. They use the same platform, but they add more services. A commercial project is more complex than a residential project, for example. And in order to provide the services, maybe we need an enabling team or a supporting team. In the case of the residential projects, for example, maybe we do not have very complex design tools. But when we are thinking about manufacturing, we need computer-aided design, we need piping, electricity, and so on. So maybe for this streamlined team in manufacturing, we need an enabling team in engineering. So once you identify the way your organization may be organized into different teams, it makes your organization more effective. Otherwise, using the same example in a consulting company, imagine we do not have a platform team. Each of these different business units, residential projects, commercial projects, manufacturing, they would have to create their own software, which does not make sense. So here we can use the same software, then you adapt to your streamlined team, and if needed, you use any enabling team. You can use the same example for any type of company. Amazon.com is one of the success stories we have in this book, for example. Could be in IT, pharmaceutical companies, consulting companies, engineering companies, and so on. As you understand the examples, it makes it easier in identifying what would be each of these 4 types of teams. But once you define the teams, we still need the tools. That's when it comes the modern project management office. The modern project management office is the organizational structure responsible for the project methodologies and also for the tools to support these projects. And when we think about tools, it is important that we understand historical information. Some people are not familiar with using new software tools, mobile applications, and so on. It is not mandatory that you have software tool. You can do engineering, for example, without a lot of technology. We have examples like Margaret Hilton leading software engineering at NASA during the Apollo 11 mission, standing next to a pile of codes that she wrote by hand. The problem in not using software tools today is that you waste a lot of resources. It's a matter of effectiveness and competitiveness. If you want to write code by hand, you can do it, but it will take a lot of people and a lot of time. You can do software engineering projects like this, but it will take a lot of time. So using the proper software tools makes you more effective and more competitive. So if we use, for example, computer-aided design, computer-aided engineering, project and portfolio enterprise tools, we can combine information with the help of a computer using support to decision-making, data analysis, and much more. So we need better tools to achieve more. That's the idea here. Combine project management best practices with the project management tools. And right now, we're going through a big revolution around the world. It's called the citizen development revolution. A citizen developer is a business user, someone like you, someone like me, not professional coders or professional software developers, but we understand our needs, the processes, the information we need, the dashboards, and we want to use low-code platforms in which we can drag and drop information and create our applications, create our dashboards. So citizen development describes the ability for a user, a business user, called the citizen developer, to create applications without coding expertise, significantly faster and at a fraction of the cost. In fact, you are already a citizen developer. If you use Microsoft Excel, if you use VBA, if you use macros, this kind of stuff, you are solving your own problems without the need of coding. And these platforms are getting more and more powerful. If you visit Monday.com, for example, or if you visit Mendix, if you visit other low-code platforms, you're going to understand that it's very easy to just drag and drop and create new columns, smart and intelligent information, combine this information to aggregate into dashboards, for example. It is very important because it enables the general workforce, business analysts, project managers, people in our organization to create complex and automated, systemized workflow processes. And how does it work? We have low-code platforms. In these low-code platforms, we already have pre-built components, templates, and tools we can use. If you visit Microsoft Power Platform, for example, you are going to find a lot of different models and templates that you can reuse. And you just can combine these components to create, for example, an application that you can use to visit a construction site, take pictures, write a report right on the spot. The benefits of citizen development: it enables a hyper-agile way of working. We do not have to wait for a software tool to be created, maybe months for that. We can just drag and drop and solve our needs. Reductions in cost and also in development times, and the speed at which you can take an idea to design and solve your business needs. Now that we understand project management, organizational agility, and citizen development, it is time to combine all of this. So we need governance. We already discussed that we need governance. There are different frameworks for that. For example, here we are combining Prince2 methodology and the Scrum framework. But the idea of combining methodologies should be supported by a specific software tool. If we have different people in different areas in the organization involved in the starting up, directing as the project board, for example, project manager, and maybe multiple delivering teams around the world, how can we do that if we do not have the modern tools? The modern tools enable organizational agility and project management. Here we have an example of the SAFe, the Scaled Agile framework, combined with the Discipline Agile approach created by PMI. So we define strategic teams, and you can do this using a low-code platform. You can create a backlog, a strategic backlog for your organization. Then we can break this down into solutions backlog, or business unities or areas backlog, but you have to transition this backlog to different teams that are going to execute, keeping traceability. So understanding what we have to do in the higher levels in the organization, breaking this down, but also keeping traceability and connecting to the strategy. And then we can create programs at the team level: planning, implementation, and integration. We've been doing this using more simple tools like Trello, for example, or physical boards in our rooms. But now we can use better tools that connect end-to-end the strategy and the execution. So low-code and citizen development, this is the framework to adopt this type of tool. It doesn't matter which tool you're going to use. I mentioned some examples like Monday.com, Microsoft Power Platform, and others. You have to go through this life cycle in discovering the tool, understanding what you can do with a low-code platform. Then experimentation, you are going to start using this tool in smaller projects, maybe in a department. Adoption, organization-wide, and then scaling so that you can have all your organization and all the people in the organization using the same platform. You are going to connect project management information to procurement, to finance, to human resources, and also you are going to be able to automate these processes. When I create a specific task, for example, I can not only have traceability into the backlog, but I also can connect this to internal and external stakeholders. I can connect this to the vendors that are working in my project and to any other stakeholder. And as you are going through this journey in discovery, experimentation, adoption, then scaling and innovating will be part of your day-to-day activities. You're going to find another way, different ways that you can create mobile applications, combine this to the projects, and implement in your daily activities. So this is the masterclass about project management tools. I hope that you understand better how we can combine methodologies and what are the future tools we can use and software tools. To complete and get the certificate, take a look at the description in this page and also the information to get your certificate, and check out the courses, the extension courses we have at IBS Americas. You have the opportunity to learn more about project management, about other topics related to project management, and it will be a pleasure to be with you in a future class in person or online. So connect with IBS and stay tuned.